That's awesome. Liz and I got a place at there in Surprise at Sterling Grove. Have you played golf at Sterling Grove yet?
No.
It's right off the 303 in Cactus. I guess
Duke's played there a
Nick
couple
Prado
times.
lives over there. So,
Cool.
yeah.
You want to dive right in?
Let's do it.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So, honestly, before we dive in, to give you an idea, obviously we'll talk baseball, but we'll like to tie in some stuff with just
Whatever.
business, entrepreneurship, leadership. So it'll be really fun. So
All positive stuff.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
dive right in.
Exactly.
All right, this is the ABC Always Be Cool podcast with your hosts Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland,
What's up,
and
everybody?
our good friend Royals and Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Mr. George Brett.
Holy cow! Right. So I started
Who
working
is
on
this guy?
That's Paul Stanley of
Paul
Kiss.
Stanley. Right. So, George, I started working on the introduction, and it could be an hour long, but I'll dive in on the introduction here. So, born May 15th, 1953 in West Virginia, relocated to Southern California a few years later, drafted by the Royals in 1971, played 21 seasons for the Royals from 1973 to 93, inducted to the Major League Hall of Fame in 1999, first ballot Hall of Famer with 98.2%. I'd like to know those other two yahoos that didn't vote for that 2%. 13-time All-Star, 1980 AL MVP, 1985 Gold Glove. These are really cool. Only Major League Baseball player in history to win batting titles in 3 different decades. Also, George is one of 5 players in MLB history to accumulate 3,000 hits, 300 home runs, and career 300 average. Member of the 85 World Series team. He is married to his wife, Leslie, and they have 3 children, and Jackson, who is named after your father, correct?
Right.
Dylan, who's named after Bob Dylan, and Robin, who is named after fellow Hall of Famer Robin Yount with the
You got
Brewers.
it. You
man.
did your homework.
Good, right?
You did your
We're
homework good. Yeah.
Bobby and I tell people we do more research now than what we did in high school and college.
And don't forget
Exactly.
that resume is badass golfer too.
And total badass golfer, man. Welcome to the show, George.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Looking
much for
forward to
hanging
it.
out with us. Absolutely.
Can I make one suggestion?
Yes.
Put your studio a little closer to where I live. Okay?
We can do that.
I mean, I had lunch today at Charleston's. You know where Charleston is? It's in
No.
the mall over there on State Line, in between State Line and Ward Parkway.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're getting done with lunch, and I said, I'm about halfway through with lunch, and I said, God, I wonder how long it's going to take me to get there. So I pull up my phone. It said 22 minutes.
Right.
And so I left at 1 o'clock and got here. I was told you I'd be here at 1:30.
Yeah.
I got here at 1:29.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Close enough, man.
Perfect.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we appreciate that.
I'm thinking about just driving around here a little bit because I have nothing to do the rest of the day.
Wow.
And
Right.
I was thinking about, is Lake Lotawana close to here?
That's where I live.
That's where Bobby lives.
I live there
I
full
was
time.
I was thinking about just going out there because I almost bought a house there
Well,
years
shit.
ago.
Let's just go out there this afternoon. We'll
Huh?
go on the boat and hang out.
No, I don't want to do that.
Don't
I
push
just want
it,
to
man.
just drive around a little bit.
No, it's a good
just
place to
kind of
drive around.
experiment this part of town, which I never
Right.
get to.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah.
It's actually cool. One of our favorite restaurants is 2 blocks away from here. So Summit Bar and
What is
Grill.
that?
Summit Bar and Grill, who's owned by Andy Locke.
Yeah,
Who-
the quarterback's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Drew's
Yeah.
dad. Literally,
They
within
have a
walk-
Summit Grill off don't tell me, Warnell and 75th.
That's exactly
I've
right.
been to that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been to
There's
that
one
one.
right here.
phenomenal.
We just walked through
Yeah.
the parking lot. We're right there.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Cool.
yeah, next time we'll go to Kansas and do this if we need to.
Yeah, we'll go
So-
hang out and do a remote session.
Exactly. Exactly.
I like all
So
your stuff.
That's my.
That's your 74?
Well-
You shot a 74 one day?
I've shot better than that, but
No way.
this round was special to me. By the way, no one's ever asked about that stuff. So my grandpa Jack,
Okay.
he taught me how to play golf. I was out in North Carolina playing, and he passed away on the day that I shot that. Played by myself just randomly, and I got a call. Hey, Grandpa passed away.
Oh, you're kidding.
So I saved the ball in the scorecard that day. So it was just like my way of.
Is that your low score ever, 74?
No, I shot a 773 a couple times.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's pretty good.
That's really good.
That's
Yeah.
really good. So
anyway, yeah. Thanks for asking about that.
cool. All right, so we have a ton of questions
Okay.
for you, George.
Okay.
So
Story time, question,
Yeah,
and
story
answer.
time. Yeah,
Just let it roll.
Anything, right on. All right, so I had a question for you. So I know you've got a lot of good stories over the years. We talked at fancy camps and things like that. So was there any particular pitcher that for whatever reason that you just kind of had his number over the
Yeah.
years?
There was one guy, Ed Figueroa.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Ed Figueroa, I think at one year I was 13 for 13 off him.
Oh my gosh,
That's unbelievable.
Seriously?
that's
Seriously.
unbelievable.
And the time I made it out, the first time he got me out, he was pitching for the Angels, and we were playing in Anaheim Stadium. And they hit a rocket right up the middle. Jerry Remy's playing second base for the Angels. He dives over, backhands it, and throws me out by a foot. And that was the third out of the inning. And as he came off the field, all the players on the Angels gave him a standing ovation because he finally got me out. And he had good stuff.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of guys I faced that didn't have good stuff that I couldn't hit. And I think Eddie was a 20-game winner a couple times, and we'll have this guy go check it out while we're doing this, and he'll pull it up. But it was an amazing thing. For some reason, I saw the ball really good off him, and you can. In my opinion, a baseball hitter's job is just to hit the ball hard.
Right.
And sometimes you're going to hit it right at them, and you're going to make an out. I never hit one right at anybody. Which was
just happened
incredible.
to go through.
It just happened to be gappers. The line drive over the second baseman's head. He jumps up and misses it by an inch,
Right.
A ball in the gap. The guy dives for it and misses it by an inch. And I think it was 13. I went 13. Oh, I think that year, I won something like 15 for 17 off of it.
That's just
wow.
Yeah.
Now, is it one of those circumstances that do you kind of give him some ribbon after the game? Do you give him a
No.
hard
I've
time?
never talked to opposing pitchers.
Right.
I didn't talk to many players on opposing teams, but especially the pitchers.
Right.
And it was one of those things after you go 5 for 5 off them one game, or you go 3 for 3, and then the next time you're 4 for 4 off them. And all of a sudden you're saying, God, I know he's going to drill me. I just know he's going to drill me.
Right.
So sure enough, I'd get up there, and now I'm 10 for 10 or 11, 12 for 12 off him. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, I'm going to get on my heels because I know he's going to throw one right at my head, try to intimidate me.
Right.
He never did.
Yeah.
He never did.
Just
Eddie
kept
lives
coming.
in Puerto Rico right now, and I think he owns a bar down there. And somebody asked him, hey, you pitched 15 years in the major leagues. Who was the toughest batter you ever had to face? He said, without a doubt, it didn't matter what I threw George Brett, he would get a hit. And he hit it hard somewhere.
Right. Right.
But it's never really said a word to him. Never really said one word to Eddie Figueroa in my whole life.
Well,
That's
you know
crazy.
what gets me? So we've had Duke and Dina on the show.
Oh.
We've had you, we've had Fitzy, we've had Les, we had Bluma. The fact that you guys will recall specific at bats
Right.
from whether no matter the decade, whether it's the 60s or 70s, 80s, 90s, exact at bats, the count, the outs, like you just said, it was the third out of the inning when you hit that up.
Right. Well, I couldn't tell you what I had for lunch 2 days ago.
Right, but
Exactly.
that's part
And
of
my wife,
my
I do a lot of shopping because my wife has a flower shop.
Yeah.
And so it's always a lot of times, it's like, hey, what time are you going to come home? I'll be home at 5:30. Are we staying home tonight? Yeah. What do you want for dinner? I'll go to the store and get it. And I'll forget some almost every time.
Right.
So now if I have to go to the store and get a lot of things, then it's like, well, just text me over everything I got because I'll never remember.
Same way.
Yeah.
And then I
Right.
walk into the grocery store and I got my little list like this, and I'm going, okay, good. I know where that is. Okay, we'll go get that. Like most people when they walk through I go from top to bottom. So I'm starting over here in the vegetable department. Then I go over there. Then I go, oh, I got to get. Okay, that's over there. And back and forth, back and forth.
I'm
You're
saying.
walking 2
forth.
miles and
My wife could go through that thing and just go here
map it
and
out.
go up and down every aisle. I go up and down every aisle 4 times.
That's
But
amazing.
I meet a lot of people there,
Right.
so it's fun.
Oh,
No
sure,
doubt.
it's fun. As we were doing the research for the show, it was so fun because there's so many stories and there's so many positive things that happened through your career. So, my grandpa started taking me to the Royals games when I was very young. So in 1976, I would have been 4 years old. You go to the old GA seats that are out in the corner of Kaufman, right? So one thing that I did want to touch base on. So there's a really cool story about the batting the title championship in 1976.
Right.
How basically there was 4 guys
Right.
coming down
Going
to
down
literally the last day, and
There
you
was-
guys were
there was-
actually playing them.
Well, we were playing the Twins.
Yeah.
It was Hal McRae and myself, Lyman Bostock, and Rod Carew.
Yeah.
And Rod Carew had won 7 batting championships
Just
in a row.
freakish.
Yeah,
Stud.
and he wasn't a power hitter, but he was an artist. He was a Rembrandt with a bat.
Right.
He had a pretty stroke. He was a great bunter. So if I didn't play back, he would bunt. If I played way in, he would hit it by you.
Right.
He could really manipulate the head of the bat. Lyman Bostock was an up-and-coming guy, maybe his 3rd or 4th year in the big leagues. Yeah, I'd say, well, I would say he was kind of like me. Maybe he came up a year after I did.
Okay.
And Hal had been around for a while, and I remember one at bat. I don't know what it was, 331, 5.6, 331, 4.9, 330. They had to carry it out 5 digits to see who was actually
Well, they had
winning.
to move the decimal point out.
Yes,
a little
they
bit.
had to just to see who was winning.
Oh my gosh.
You know, it was crazy, and I ended up going 3 for 4 that day. And my last at bat got jammed a little bit. And the funny thing it was off a guy named Hughes, and Jimmy Hughes. Ironically enough, he went to Bishop Montgomery High School in Southern California. I faced him in high school.
No way. How
Is that
odd is
unbelievable?
The odds of
So,
that.
Yeah.
So you guys kind of knew each other.
Well, we knew each
You were
other,
just
and
passing.
then I was dating some gal a little bit. I was seeing her. I wasn't really dating her, but I was seeing her. He ended up marrying her. It's the craziest. You can't make this crap up. So he ends up marrying her. I can't remember her name. Hope she's not listening. But he ended up marrying her, and now he still has a job with Rawlings. He's worked for Rawlings since he's retired
Wow.
from
No kidding.
baseball. But I got a little. The left fielder come running in, and we played on AstroTurf. You know, when it was a hot day, and of course he's going, "Oh my God, it's going to bounce over me." So he coming in, and he stops, and the ball bounces over his head. I get it inside the park.
No
and run.
way.
Hal comes up
Nice.
next, and he hits a ground ball to shortstop, and I ended up winning by 1 point.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how was that? You know, you guys are buddies, and
Well, Hal was pissed because he thought the left fielder let it drop on purpose, and Gene Mock was the manager, and
okay.
Hal started screaming. He wanted to go over and fight him, so it did take a little fun away from me winning my
Sure.
first batting championship.
Sure.
And Rod was great with it. He was great. Lyman Bostock was great. You know, anytime you do something, you win 7 batting championships in a row. You don't want to lose.
Sure.
Right.
I think Rod got 2 hits that day. I got 3, and I ended up beating Hal. I think if Hal got a hit his last at bat, he would have won.
Really?
And he
Okay.
hit the ball hard, hit a ground ball right to the shortstop. I think it was Roy Smalley, and they threw him out at first. And
Wow.
I think the game was over right then because I
That's
did mine in the 9th
incredible.
inning.
Right. Just
The
what's the
last at bat.
chances of that ever happening
No,
again?
all 4 guys and
Playing each other.
competing.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays they don't even give a. Can we cuss on this
Yes.
show? Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't even give a shit about batting average. All I hear about is OPS. I don't even know what that means.
Right.
On base plus slugging. Why
Right.
don't you just say, okay, how many home runs does he have and what's his batting average? Everything is OPS related.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't get it. I don't get it.
Right. Launch angles.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
get that shit.
Right.
Same thing. Yeah, all those stats that came around this era.
Yeah.
I can't even read an article on baseball because they have all these things and I don't understand what they mean.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know what really pisses me off is they don't have box scores in the paper.
I know. I used to live for that.
That's
Yeah.
what I used to do
Every
day.
morning. That's how I started
When
my morning.
when I named my son Robin after Robin Yount, we were in the hospital, and Robin's my youngest boy. He's 26 years old, so we're sitting in the hospital, and the girl's doing the sonogram on my wife's belly, and next thing you know, she goes, and I'm looking at it, and I'm kind of a pro at this stuff now, and I said, "Oh, is that what I think it was?" She goes, "Yeah." My wife goes, "God damn, you got to be kidding me!
Not
3
another
boys?"
one?
Yeah, and so then we're sitting there, and the doctor's doing, talking, and I'm sitting there reading the box scores, and I look at the Chicago White Sox, and I see Robin Ventura.
Okay.
And now I'm thinking of a boy's name, and I go, God, I've always enjoyed playing against Robin Yount. I said, why don't we name him Robin? She said, that's fine. Good name.
That's
Wow,
amazing.
that's how it
How's
came,
that?
huh?
That's
it came
amazing.
from the box score, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
That's
did you
awesome.
ever have a conversation with Yount? Like,
Oh,
hey,
yeah. My son Robin's got a signed jersey in his bedroom when he lived with us at home. It's still in his bedroom, a signed jersey from Robin.
That's cool.
That's
got a
amazing.
nice jersey with an autographed and a baseball card in it.
That's awesome.
That's super
So you
cool.
And
mentioned
Robin and I are great friends to this day. I'll see him in a couple weeks in Cooperstown.
that's cool.
That's
I hang out
amazing.
with him a lot. We have dinner
Right.
with him and his wife Michelle, and look forward to we play golf together on Sunday morning before the induction ceremony. Me and Robin always got to be on the same team,
Right.
and Schmitty got to be on my team. And
Right. I
That's
bet that's
awesome.
so. Speaking of sons and kids, so you had 3 brothers, so
Right.
there was 4 Brett brothers, right?
Mhm.
And I remember when we started, talking about having you come on the podcast. So Bobby and I had the pleasure of being on your team last year at fantasy camp, right? And we were partaking in a few cocktails and some chips and salsa at your favorite Mexican joint that we go to in Surprise.
Real Mirage.
And you were telling some really cool stories about your brother Ken.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to just to touch base on that because it kind of blew us away. So Ken, at the age of 19, a lot of people don't know this, but at the age of 19, he actually pitched in the 1967 World Series.
He got drafted out of high school by the Red Sox. First, he was the fourth player taken, and he could have went to any college in the country, been a quarterback or a center fielder pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So a guy named Steve Chilcott goes number 1. Reggie Jackson goes number 2. I forget who goes number 3. And then my brother Ken was drafted. So he goes to Oneonta in the New York Penn League in 66. 67, he's pitching somewhere, and they call him up. September call-up to the big leagues. He's 19 years old.
Wow.
Somebody got hurt on the team, so they made him eligible to be in the World Series. To this day, he's the youngest pitcher ever to pitch in a World Series game.
That's amazing.
But he was a tremendous athlete. A lot of people say he's one of the greatest athletes ever to come out of Southern California.
Right.
He was a good basketball player. He was everything in football, quarterback, and he was California State Player of the Year 2 years in a row.
That's amazing.
Check this out. I have
That's
this
amazing.
at home.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that one.
Isn't that crazy?
He was so popular, he got traded 11 times because everybody wanted him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he overstayed his welcome. 10 times. And the first time he pitched for the Royals, he was released. He got released. The Dodgers released him. Tommy Lasorda released him. And they brought up some guy from Mexico named Fernando Valenzuela.
Yeah, I've heard
Some
of
guy.
that.
So some guy.
Yeah.
And so they said, hey, Ken, I'm sorry, we don't have room. We're going to bring up Fernando. So he's just putzing around, and he ends up going back to Boston because he lived in Boston forever.
Okay.
And I was playing in Kansas City in 1980. And so he just says, my brother's having a pretty good year. I think I'm going to stop and visit him for the weekend. And he knew Jamie Quirk really well, and he knew some of the guys on the team just from playing against us. And Billy Connors, our pitching coach, saw him. He was in the locker room with us one day before a game, and he says, hey, what are you doing nowadays? And he says, nothing, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do the rest of my life. and he says, God, can you throw? We don't have one left-hander that we trust on the major league team.
Wow.
And he just happened to be visiting you.
Just happened to be visiting.
Wow.
So he says, yeah, probably. I don't know. I haven't picked up a ball in a while. So he says, hey, you want to go throw a side in the bullpen? He goes out the right field bullpen, Royal Stadium, shorts and a T-shirt, and put on a pair of my spikes probably, and went out there and threw. They signed him. He flies home, gets a bunch of stuff. He goes to Omaha. He pitches in Omaha for a month, and then he's on our team the rest of the season in 80 and all of 81.
No way.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't know that.
Is that unbelievable?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Isn't that the great? So I actually have one of the 1980 baseball cards with Ken on
Do
it.
you really?
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So how was that? Like
Oh,
hanging
it
out
was a blast. It was a blast.
That's
playing.
special.
Oh,
It really
gosh.
was. It really was. I played against him, when he was pitching for the Angels or the Twins or the White Sox. He played for the Phillies, Brewers. That was before I got to the big leagues. He was with the Brewers. But he played for, I think, 10 or 11 teams. And playing against him was a lot of fun, but having him on my team was
That's
really,
special.
it was a special time for the two of us.
That's super special.
And it was 1980, the year I almost hit 400, so we had a lot of fun together.
Oh.
Heck yeah, that's cool. He had front row seat.
That's
Absolutely.
super cool.
You know,
and,
we're talking.
I think he bet on me too in Vegas because you could bet back then. They had a line in Vegas. He bet on me.
Did he really?
And man, every time I'd go, I was 400 with 2 weeks to go.
Right.
He's feeling pretty good. We went to Seattle. I went 1 for 11. I didn't strike out once. Hit the ball hard 7 times. My only hit was a home run.
Okay.
And what I was talking about earlier, your job's to hit the ball hard. Sometimes they're going to catch it.
Right.
They're 25 games out of first place, and the center fielder, Johnny Moses, is diving, catching balls. Mario Mendoza, the shortstop, diving up the middle, throwing me out by. I'm going, you got to be kidding me.
Give me a break.
If you guys were that good, you wouldn't be 25 games out of first place.
No shit.
amazing.
And
they're
I
just
ended up
playing out
going
there.
1 for 11. And I get the average went down to like 390 or something, and then it got down to as low as 383.
You went on a hot streak.
And then
at
I
the end
got
of-
hot
yeah.
the last 5 games, hit 500 to get it to 390.
We're talking about being special and having some special things. How about the fact that you and Duke both have been with this organization for 50 plus years?
Yeah, that's amazing.
That is
Mind-boggling.
amazing.
Absolutely
Unheard of.
mind-boggling. But I've done it consecutively. Duke went to Boston.
Right.
He went to the Angels. I'm in my 51st year with the organization.
That's incredible.
One guy's done it longer. We lost Art Stewart. Art
Right.
was here since
Yeah.
'69. Denny Matthews been with him since
Right.
1969.
Sure.
And then it's me.
That's amazing.
So it's crazy. Every 2 weeks, I got a paycheck. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen.
Duke was saying the same.
That's-
Well,
Yeah.
Duke told the story how the Wathen family is. They've got
everybody,
4 or 5
everybody.
people that have been on the payroll.
Right.
Everybody. I think his wife was, because she used to make these breakfast
Right.
burritos.
That's what he
Yeah,
said. Yes,
and
yeah,
God, they
that's
were
right.
so. This is before they had a full-time chef in the kitchen
Right.
down
Right.
there in the locker room. But his wife would make these breakfast burritos, so the Royals would give her a check. Dusty played for the Royals. Derek did some stuff for the Royals. Dina works for the Royals. She's my boss there.
That's what she
Oh,
said.
that's
Dina's
craziest
my
thing
boss.
ever.
She said,
Yeah.
She's
she
my
goes, I'm
boss.
George's
You know,
boss.
I got
She can
in
be
fact, I
intimidating.
got a caller today. I have a buddy of mine that owns Hooray Grills. It's doesn't own it. He works for him, and so he's outside Wichita, and went there over Thanksgiving, and we had a big barbecue. Me and him and his kids, and out at his farm, and we cooked all this stuff on the Hooray Grill. Have you ever seen one?
No.
The best grill ever.
Really?
And so he called me and said, in fact, I got a Hooray at my house, but my son Jackson stole it, so it's at his house right now. He said, hey, I got to get you the new one. I got to get you the new grill. I said, okay, fine. He says, yeah, we're thinking about bringing, my kid's Little League team up there. Well, great, bring them up. I'll get you tickets. Get a thing today. God, I think he said they need 45 tickets.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I can call Dina and say, Dina, I need 45 tickets. So I think what I'm going to do is just go buy him 45 tickets.
Right.
And
Call
say,
it good.
okay, here,
Yeah, we
Dina,
can call her.
tell this guy how to pick up the tickets. Because I don't know. Back, every time I went to a sporting event, you had a paper ticket. Now you don't have paper tickets anymore.
No.
You got to download the app and you got to do all this.
Yeah.
Well, I've never used one of those.
It's
Never
crazy.
used one. I have always,
You have to prepay for parking.
yeah.
No, you can't even get a parking pass
Yeah.
anymore
Yeah.
at the,
So-
at the gate.
I think I'm just going to buy 45 tickets. And
Tell 'em to
just,
pick up a
and
will
just,
call and
Well,
go with it.
I don't know how you do it, but rather than ask,
Yeah.
because that's a big ask for me.
Right, right.
That is-
Well, I know there's a lot of influential people, in your career along the path, but you mentioned this to us, when you do some of the hitting down at fantasy camp and help us guys who want to play baseball. But tell the listeners a little bit about how big an impact Charlie Lau had in your career, because he was the Royals hitting coach, right? And just did some amazing things. You guys had a really special bond.
Yeah,
together.
it was kind of father-sonish. It really was. It was. And my first year out of high school, I was playing in Billings, Montana. I hit 291, which was good. I mean, everybody was happy with that. That was fine. And the next year, I go to San Jose. I hit 282. God, I think I don't know what I hit there. Maybe 270, 280. But I'm the youngest guy in both leagues I'm playing in.
Right.
And then I go to AAA. I skip AA and go to AAA. I hit 282. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just going up there, seeing the ball and hit it.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about fundamentals. No one ever, my high school coach didn't teach you how to hit. If you were a good enough hitter, you played. If you weren't a good enough hitter, guess what? You didn't play.
Right.
And so all of a sudden I get called up to the big leagues, and my first at bat hit a line drive right back to the pitcher. He caught it. Next at bat, broken bat single to left, and then we left Chicago. We went to Minnesota. I went 1 for 4, 1 for 4 my first 2 games, no errors. Then I didn't play again for 2 weeks. Then I got sent back down to the minors, and I'm going, God, what did I do wrong? And Paul Shaw, who was the third baseman, then sprained his ankle. So 2 weeks, and he'll be back. So they sent me back down. Then I was a September call-up, and I ended up, playing on Monday, and then you wouldn't play till next Tuesday. And Charlie Lau just sat and watched me. Never said a word, just watched me. And I hit 125 or 175 that year. And the next year, got called up 2 weeks after the season started. I went back to AAA. And then they traded Paul, and they basically said, you're playing third base. So at the All-Star break, I was hitting 200.
Okay.
And I had 200 at-bats. And nowadays, that's pretty good. There are a lot of guys hitting
Right.
200.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, it's the All-Star break, and we're in Cleveland, and he said, hey, I want to sit with you on the way home. I said, he's never said one word to me.
And he's the kid, and
And
he's the hitting
he's
coach.
the hitting
Yeah.
coach. He's just sitting there watching.
Soaking
He
it
said,
in.
I've been watching you. You got 200 at-bats. You're hitting 200. You haven't made what adjustment? He said, I think you can play in the big leagues. I'm the only coach here. You're real close to be going back to AAA. And I think we can make you a player, a better hitter, if you listen to me. I said, well,
What do you got to
I was
lose?
at rock bottom.
Right.
And
Okay.
I think that's what his strategy was. Get him at rock bottom. then he'll be willing to put forth the effort.
To listen.
Then he'll listen.
Right.
Then he'll be willing to change.
That's a good point.
And so all of a sudden, he says, okay, we have 3 days off for the All-Star break. This is 1974. And my brother Ken was the winning pitcher of the 74 All-Star game.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
In Pittsburgh, and he pitched for Pirates. He pitched for the Pirates.
That's awesome.
So I watched the game, and then the next day we had went to Lake of the Ozarks, me and Buck Martinez. We left Sunday night, and then we were there Monday, Tuesday, and then we drove back, probably 10 o'clock in the morning. Went to our place out in Raytown, packed up. We were going on the road, and had to go to the stadium. And Charlie and I just talked, and he had some video of guys that he said, I like the way this guy swings. You like that swing? And then we go out on the field. We had no indoor tunnels. Everything all the batting
BP.
practice that we did was all in the field.
Right.
We had no batting tees.
Yeah.
We had no pitching machines. He's out there throwing. Al Zeke, our old equipment man, would go out and throw to us. And we started experimenting, trying to move me off the plate. He got me to take my top hand off so I swing through the ball, not around it. And all these little things. And he said, okay, good first day. He said, I'll see you at 3 tomorrow in Baltimore. I said, okay. So we go out and have early hitting there. And my objective or my goal was not to hit a ball to the right of the second baseman. So he wanted me to hit everything from the second baseman to the left field line.
Yep.
So I'd stay through the ball longer. And we're facing Ross Grimsley, I think, the first day. And, he's a tough left-hander. And I got 2 line drives up the middle. I'm going, that's pretty good.
Awesome.
Next day, we're facing somebody else, Mike Cuellar, another lefty. I got a couple base hits to left field. I'm going, man, I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Right.
Well, we set up a goal. That goal was to get to 250 by the end of the season. All of a sudden, about a month and a half later, I get a base hit, and I come running back in the dugout, and I said, Charlie, we did it. We got to 250. He said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you said our goal was to hit 250. He says, no, 260.
The bar moves.
I said, no, you said 250. He said, no, it's 260 now, you moron. He called me a mullet head. He used to call me mullet head.
He didn't want to get.
And
for
you know
to
what a
get too
mullet head
comfortable.
is? It's a dumb fish. It's a fish that because he lived in the Keys.
All right.
And whenever he'd catch a mullet fish, instead of a snook wasn't a good edible fish, but mullet head, a snook, you just throw them back because they're not good eating.
Right.
So he
So
started
instead of
calling me
dumbass, it was
mullet
mullet
head.
head.
Yeah.
All right.
So all of a sudden I get to 292 with 4 games to go in the season. I come to the ballpark Sunday afternoon in Kansas City, and I get there, and Buck Martinez and Bruce Del Canton and Freddie Poctek, they're all glum-faced, and I go, what's wrong? And they said they fired Charlie Lau today. I go, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I went 1 for 11 the rest of the year and ended up hitting 282. And I really believed that if he was there, I would have hit 300.
Right.
But it just kind of let the air out of my
Sure.
balloon.
Oh, sure. Sure.
So I think there's a lesson in there. Number one, the fact that you had quote unquote made it, right? You made it to the bigs.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this hitting coach now that maybe watches for a little bit, approaches you and says, I've got some pointers.
Yep.
For you to kind of have that humility and say, maybe I really haven't made it. I'm going to be willing to listen to anything that he says. I think there's a big lesson in that, no matter what we're doing.
It's really not hard to make it to the major leagues. It's harder to stay. And there's a lot of guys that come up, go back down, and never get back up.
Sure. Right.
And when I became the interim hitting coach in 2013, I didn't tell anybody they had to change. I just offered suggestions. I think this would make you a better hitter. Try this in batting practice. Try this. And when guys were reluctant to try anything, that's when I said, this is just stupid.
Right.
I'm wasting my time. No one's listening to me. I mean, Pedro Grifol, I love the guy. He's a great friend. He was my assistant hitting coach. He's never played in the big leagues. I had more hits than every minor league hitting instructor and major league hitting instructor that we had. I got more hits in the big leagues than they have in their minor league careers.
Total.
And yet no one listens to me.
Right.
And so one day I was in a meeting with Ned Yost, and I came out in the cages behind the dugout, and Pedro was down there soft tossing, and here I'm telling Sal, you're swinging too hard, man. just 80%. And telling Moose, you hit the ball good. Who cares if they catch? I'm telling Hosmer, I don't know why you practice and you hit the shit out of the ball every time, taking your top hand off in BP, and then the game starts, you leave it on.
Right.
If I was you, I would practice the way you're going to play. Alex Gordon did the opposite. Alex, I don't know why you leave your top hand on every swing in BP, and then the game you take it off. To me, we're not gaining repetition,
Right.
And then I walked into the cages, and they were all kind of standing around, and they all like to do their soft toss drills and stuff. So I walk in there, and I go, hey, Moose, come on over here. I'm going to wait for Pedro. Sal, come over here. I'm waiting for Pedro. Haas, come over here. No, I'm waiting for Pedro. I just said, okay, screw you guys. I went in and told Ned Yost, I said, I'm done, my last game.
Right.
Why do you think that was? Because you
I don't know.
you were harder on them? You held them
I-
accountable?
I don't know. I don't know why no one wanted me to soft toss to him.
So, okay, so I heard you do an
Do you think it was
interview.
intimidating, though?
Well, I think
a little bit.
I think personally,
Right.
yeah, that's probably part of it. But I heard you do an interview one time where you had listened to something, or somebody told you something that Albert Bell was talking about hitting, and it was like a poetic
Albert
thing.
Bell was a great hitter.
He was a great
He was
hitter.
a great hitter.
And you were having
Just
a conversation.
bad guy. But I heard he's a great guy now. He had a bad reputation.
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
he was
field
a hard ass.
and off the
Right.
field. I heard now he is. I forget where he's living. I think he's living in Florida somewhere.
I think he's in Arizona.
Arizona. That's
Yeah.
right. He is in Arizona, and I'm in Arizona part time. I'm going to look him up. I'd love to
should.
talk hitting with him.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
So
talk
I think you were doing
hitting
an
with him.
interview with Brett Boone, actually, and the conversation came up
Yeah.
how you were talking about something similar, if I remember correctly, and it's almost like, if Darren talks to Drew, who you met out there, Drew's his son, if Darren tells Drew something and Drew says, screw it, that's just my dad, he doesn't know anything.
Right.
But if I go in and I tell the same thing,
Right.
Drew's going to listen to
Sure.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that's maybe part of it, like having a different perspective, a different voice
Yeah.
coming from someone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just resonates, but I don't know if George Brett's telling me how to hit, I'm listening.
Well,
Right. Exactly. I know when I'm in the box.
I'm not telling him anything that Charlie didn't tell me.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not telling him that anything different that Charlie didn't tell Hal McRae, and I'm sure as hell not telling him anything different than 1980 when Charlie went over to the New York Yankees and Reggie hit
Reggie.
300 that year,
And
the
30
first
home
time
runs.
ever
Right.
with 30 home runs. If
Right.
it worked for me, if it worked for Hal, if it worked for Joe Rudy, if it worked for Freddie Potek, Freddie might have been a 230 hitter.
Yeah.
Charlie made him a 260 hitter.
Right.
I might have been a 270 hitter, but he made me a 300 hitter.
Right.
All I'm trying to do is relay that same information, but when you got no takers,
Right.
I was just it was like, I couldn't go to the ballpark and show my face in there anymore. I really couldn't, because what am I going to do? We'd have guys that make it out, and they would come over to Pedro and say, "How'd that look?" And I'm sitting there. Pedro doesn't have one frickin' hit in the major leagues. I got 3,100 of them.
Right.
And they're not going to ask me. So that's when I knew.
That's when you knew.
There's
Yeah.
always a time to go. That old saying, "You'll never be welcome to stay over. If you overstay, you're welcome."
Right.
I figured I overstayed my welcome as an interim hitting coach. I said I'd do it for a month. I did it for 2. I would have loved to finish, but I wasn't getting any positive feedback
Right.
from any of my teammates.
Exactly.
In fact, my best friend on the team was Kelvin Herrera.
Oh, yeah.
He and I,
He'd ask
we
you
were
questions
best
all the
friends.
time.
We were best friends. I'd have breakfast with him every day game. I introduced him to a BLT with an egg on it.
Oh,
Showed him how to
Fan
make
for
them.
life.
I showed him how to make them.
fan for life.
And then every day game, we would sit there and we'd have a BLT together.
Oh, my gosh.
So speaking of coaches and things, so one of the favorite questions we like to ask is, as your career progressed, who was your favorite manager that you played for?
Well, I think it'd be 2. I think it'd be 3. I had a lot of respect for 2 of my teammates I played with, John Wathan and Hal McRae. I love those guys. But I
Right.
think the best manager I played for, and I love playing for all of them, Jim Fry, Billy Gardner for the month he was there. I loved them all. But Whitey Herzog, I thought, when he came over and started managing us, he came up to me one day, and at that time I was starting to become a decent player. I still didn't know if I was going to be a good player, but he came over and he said, "Hey, you're playing third and hitting third every day. Don't worry
Right.
about anything. Just go out there and play hard, I don't care if you're 0 for 20, you're still hitting third.
And how
Well,
did
that changed after
Oh, my gosh,
sometimes
yeah.
when things were, guys couldn't get on base. Our leadoff guy couldn't. He called me in his office one day and he says, I'm going to hit you leadoff. I'm going to hit you leadoff for a week and just see what happens. And then I'd come back, okay, now I'm going to hit you second. Or I'm going to hit you fourth. So it was always top 3 or 4, just basically on how I was swinging
Sure.
and how the rest of the team were swinging. If Freddie Potek was getting on base to start off a game, he'd put me at third, So
Right. That's
Hal,
cool.
Hal and I were usually side by side. Me and Hal. Hal would hit second, I'd hit third. I'd hit second, Hal would hit third.
Right.
And but Hal was probably my favorite teammate of all time.
I've heard you say that several times.
Just
Why
because
is
he
that?
taught me how to.
Yeah.
I just watching him play
Really?
inspired me to do that.
'Cause he kinda
stretch
said-
singles to doubles, break up double plays, don't take anything for granted.
Just lead by example.
Yeah,
Right.
and never, just kind of quiet in the clubhouse. But once that game started, you watch him and you go, man, he sets the tone.
He was intense, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Because didn't we get him from the Big Red Machine in the
And
early
he
70s?
learned from Pete Rose and
Yeah.
Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan, and he came over to us. He was, I looked up to him, and we just became great friends.
That's
Great
awesome.
friends.
That's super cool.
Yeah, wasn't he? Didn't he? He was a hitting coach in Seattle for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, Tampa Bay, I think. I think it was Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Now, is it true what the '85 World Series? Were you hanging out with Whitey at like the Chiefs
Yeah,
game?
went to the Chiefs game before Game 7. I couldn't sleep. After Game 6, I got home about 2:30 in the morning, and it was a night game, and went to sleep. I woke up, it was about 3:15. Went back to sleep, woke up, it was 3:45. Went back to sleep, woke up at 4. And I'm thinking it's time to go to the stadium, I just couldn't
Just
sleep.
amped up.
Right.
I don't know if I was amped up from Game 6 or scared to death about playing in Game 7.
Right.
Because, a lot of things can happen. You can have a great career, and I'm just going to mention one name, Billy Buckner. That's and that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And Buck is till he passed away, was a very dear friend of mine. We were great. We went batting championships the same year. We wore the same shoes. We would get together in the winter with the shoe company, and then he got traded over to the Royals. Stayed with me for a while, and
He was
just
a great player.
admired the hell out.
Yeah.
I admired the hell out of that guy, and what he had to go through to play a game. His ankles were so bad, and the icing, and he, guys tape their ankles. They put that little wrap underneath it. He didn't do that. He shaved his leg and put tape over it, right on his skin.
Oh my gosh.
It was just ridiculous. Blood coming out after every
Jesus.
game. He'd cut it off and then rip it, and blood would, he'd have to soak his ankles in ice water after a game, and it was just brutal what he had to go through. But love playing with him, love playing with Hal McRae. But, there are a lot of guys you play with that you get along with. A lot of guys you play with you really don't get along with.
Sure.
Okay.
But once you're
Like
on the
any other
field,
company, right?
Yeah.
once you're on the field, hey,
Pulling in the same
I'll
direction.
kill for you, brother.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
kill
game
for
on.
you.
That's
Yeah.
important. I
right.
think
It
we
is.
always talk about it with our businesses. If the team is rowing in the same direction, then you're going to do some good
Right.
shit, right? But if you've got one person that's pulling away or trying to do
Yeah.
their own thing, then it's demonstrative to the whole organization.
I always knew a guy that wouldn't be there very long in our organization back then. If he went 3 for 4 and we lost, he was happy. And if he went 0 for 4 and we won, he was pissed.
Yep.
Those guys don't sit around on championship teams.
No.
They don't
No.
sit around on championship teams, and that's, I think, a great analogy of what a winning player is. Doesn't care about his performance. He's out to help the team win.
Right.
And I hear Vinny Pasquantino say that all the time now.
That's
I'm just
Right.
happy I
Yeah.
got a hit to help the team win.
Yep.
And
that's
I
great.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that thought process.
It's hard to have a bunch of selfish people, whether it's on a team or in a business,
Sure.
that's all about themselves, right? Because I guarantee there's certain circumstances that no matter how awesome someone is, if they're all about themselves, they're eventually going to find themselves off that team or out of the
Sure, yeah.
clubhouse somewhere, right?
They'll work themselves out.
Yeah,
Coach them up or coach them out.
exactly.
For sure.
Yep.
So speaking of which, about possibly leaving a clubhouse, George, is there any stories that you can tell us? Was there any point in your career that they had talked or came to you about possibly trading you at all?
Yeah, there was one. I was young. real young, and there was a story. It was during the winter meetings, and I forget where they were. And back then, the newspapers were pretty much up to date. Mm-hmm. And there was a little newspaper in Southern California where I grew up called the Daily Breeze. Mm-hmm. And they used to have little articles, hey, here's what, in the winter meetings, they said the Royals are very close to making a trade with the Cincinnati Reds, Tony Perez for George Brett.
That was a
I was 20 years old. I was 20 years old, 21 years old.
Wow.
And I'm reading that, and I'm going, God, getting traded for the Royals, that would be brutal, But go to the Reds would be pretty awesome,
Yeah.
And thank God it never happened. I'm really happy it didn't happen. And then there was one late in my career. That there was a rumor that I was going to get traded when Whitey was with St. Louis.
Okay,
I was going to get traded over there.
Holy smokes! Could you imagine the fans in Kansas City
and
the reaction of that?
Didn't you have a meeting with Mr. Kaufman? I thought.
We had some disagreements over some stuff and over contract issues and back then he told me I didn't need an agent, and then sure enough I agreed to all this stuff, and then 5 years later I'm finding out some of this stuff wasn't written in the contract properly and cost me a lot of money.
Gotcha.
And so then I said, okay, I'm done. And then I went to St. Louis and went to the World Series when Whitey was managing. And I was sitting behind home plate with a Cardinal hat on, and then I was up in the stadium club. I was up in the stadium club, and I was bartending and giving guys drinks and stuff, and everybody. And I have some really good friends that live in St. Louis,
right?
And they're all going, "Yeah, you got to get traded over here." Yeah, I said, "God, I'd love to come over here and play for the Rat again."
Oh my God!
Then all of a sudden, I get called into the principal's office and Mr. K's office, and got a little yelled at. But
is that one of those moments that it's probably a good thing that social media and cameras
if they had Twitter then and Instagram and stuff, oh my God, it would have been really bad.
All right, here's a question. So when we talked to Duke, we asked him the question from a leadership standpoint, going from a player, then becoming essentially the boss, right? You're the manager and managing guys that he'd played with for so long. Mm-hmm. So he said that it was an interesting transition and it was difficult at times. The perspective of the player from you having that guy you've been playing alongside for so many years to then become the manager. Can you maybe talk about that perspective?
Well, the first thing Duke did, first thing he did was he got me and all the guys that played for him on that team, Willie Wilson, Frank White, Jamie Quirk, a few other guys, I forget who they might be. He'd call us in his office, and he had managed in Omaha for like a month or something. That's
it wasn't very long. Yeah,
but we always thought Duke had a very good mind for baseball. Most catchers do.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, catchers just get it.
Right? They have to pay
And
attention.
he said, I will not be successful unless you guys show me the respect. That I'm not your friend anymore. I'm your manager.
Right.
And you have to show me that respect. And if you don't show me that respect, nobody else will respect me.
Yep.
And we were all on board. We liked
you
John.
got it right.
We liked John, so it was no big deal to me. And everybody always said I was the easiest guy to ever manage because I showed up, and if I was healthy, I played every game and I played it hard.
Duke said that he goes, all I had to do was come in and write George Brett batting third every single day.
Not even worry about it.
How about his first game ever as manager in the big leagues? Did he tell you what happened?
He didn't tell us.
I don't think so.
Oh, you got to let us know on this.
Bottom of the ninth inning, game's tied. I had an opposite field home run to win the game.
That was his first game?
First game.
Wow. What was that, 80?
Did he pick up the tab afterwards?
It was at home. If we were on the road, definitely. I went out with all my cronies, and Duke went home with his wife. So, but if we were on the road, I definitely would have been in the hotel bar waiting for him to get there
all day long.
Yeah,
let's go, dude.
But it was a walk-off home run, his first, and I think he has a picture. I've seen the picture of me crossing home plate and giving him a big hug.
It
was really
amazing.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
And when he got fired, he had the best winning percentage of any manager in the Royals history.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they fired him for some reason. I don't know why.
Unbelievable.
We were all in shock when he got fired.
Well, okay, so very similar to Charlie Lau. What
Charlie got fired because I heard at the time Jack McKeon was our manager, and Charlie was getting credit not only for all the hitters but all the pitchers. Because Charlie was such a student to the game. Steve Busby would say he would always have meetings with Charlie. How do I get this guy out? By looking at his stance, what he can hit, what he can't, how close he stood to the plate. what type of hitter he was, if he was a pull hitter, if he could go the opposite way. And everybody was giving Charlie all this credit.
Because he knew how to get him out.
And the pitcher, the hitters were all giving Charlie credit, and Jack didn't like it, so Jack got rid of him.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
And then, but he was smart. He went to the minor leagues, stayed within the organization, figuring that Jack McKeon wasn't going to be there long. Sure enough, 2 months into the season the next year, Jack gets fired. They bring in Whitey Herzog. Charlie's down being the minor league hitting instructor, and they just said, "Hey, you're coming back to the big leagues." So
that's awesome.
We just
quick
continued where we
turnaround
left
time.
off.
Yeah.
Charlie was no dummy. He was no dummy.
He knew what was up.
In fact, he used to call me dummy all the time. He'd call people dummy. That was his word. Called me mullet head and dummy.
That's funny. So speaking of picking up bar tabs, would you guys ever play jokes on each other? So let's say you're on the road, just for fun. Would you guys ever say, "Oh yeah, put it on such and such room"?
Look at the grin.
What are you talking
Would you guys
about?
have like games of that and pummel people?
We would
with that?
go out and have dinner. Me, Keith Miller was in the group. Kevin McReynolds, Wally Joyner, Jerry Don Gleaton, a few other guys. We'd have a day game, and we'd all go out and have dinner. And then we'd just everybody throw out their credit card, and whichever one the gal picked, that's who bought dinner.
Yeah.
Well, we were in Milwaukee one time, and Keith says, "Hey, I can't go to dinner with you guys tonight. I got my family in. And I got to take them out to dinner." So all of a sudden, you get to the ballpark, they have a box, and you have a little slot in there. You put your wallet in there and your key to your hotel room, and then they lock it up. And then when the game's over, they unlock it. You go get your stuff, put it in your pocket, and you go.
Right.
Well, I had the great idea that I'm going to take Keith's, go in there and take a credit card out of Keith's wallet. So sure enough, he goes out and he takes his family out to dinner. His wife. Family, there's probably 12 people or something, and we go out and we go to the Knickerbocker Hotel at some really great steakhouse.
Because that was
in Milwaukee.
your favorite spot in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yeah,
I know it well.
The Knickerbocker Hotel, that great steakhouse. I can't think of the name of it right now. And so all of a sudden we're getting ready to throw out the credit cards, and I said, "Now Keith's got it. So I just I give him the card. Dave Howard was with us too, so I give him the card. And give the gal a generous tip, and the next thing you know, we all write on the menu what we liked, put the credit card in, and we slid it under his door. He comes to the ballpark the next day, and he's screaming at me, "You son of a bitch, I know it was you. I know it was you." And he's just screaming at me. And he said, "Not only did I have to buy all you assholes dinner, I had to buy my wife's fucking family dinner, too." And he said, "Oh, by the way, there's a pretty goddamn generous tip." And then he's calmed down. He comes over about 10 minutes later, and he says, "Oh, and by the way, what was that extra $80 for? The drinks afterwards." And I said, "Well, we saw the umpires in there, and we decided to buy them a drink." So let's fast forward. 5 years go by. Now Keith's an agent, and he's representing Mike Sweeney.
Oh.
He's in that group.
Okay.
That's the Levinson brothers. So he's still working for him. So all of a sudden, he's there, the big signing down in Baseball City. They do it after a night game, do it home plate. They got all the agents, and, I was in the front office then, so I'm there. And then Keith says, "Come on, we're all going out. We're all going out and celebrate." So we go to Celebration City, some Italian restaurant. And it's probably 10 o'clock at night, and so we go there, and we're just so happy for Mike. 5-year, $55 million contract, which was huge at that
massive.
time.
That was a
And he
massive
deserved it. He deserved it. God,
he did.
He was a great player and one of my best friends today in the game. But Keith comes clean. He says, after that dinner you did in Milwaukee that night, every time I had any meal in my room, I would sign your room number to it. And every time I would go to the hotel bar, I knew what room you were staying in. I'd write George Brett in your room. And so I go, "For how many years was that?" No, I never checked out. They just deducted it out of my check.
So you never checked it?
I never knew.
Oh, wow. He came out way ahead.
He did that for 2 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Eating all his meals in the hotel and drinking all his meals, putting it on my tab.
For 2 years? That's like 160 games?
You asked me if 80, because we 81 games a year.
Right,
Yeah.
But you asked me if we ever did anything like that. Yeah, I got the short end of that one.
That's classic.
That's
Yeah.
good.
That's amazing.
So I've read some stuff that you were never really big on written goals,
No.
right? So
I had more expectations.
more expectations. So, but you didn't necessarily write them down or vocalize them. Was it just internal? Like you
Yeah.
just said, this is where I want to make sure
This
I
is
hit.
where I should be.
Yeah.
This is where I should be at the end of the season.
So I've read some stuff that somebody who's the exact opposite, who was a phenomenal hitter in his own right, was Edgar Martinez. He always wrote goals down, and he said, I'm going to try to hit 350 so that he could hit 300 and be like, that's still pretty damn good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't know if that was anything that you ever changed
I expected
on.
to hit 300 every year.
Yeah.
I expected to drive in 100 runs, score 100 runs, and have more walks than strikeouts. That was
Which
it.
you did most.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that one of 5 people, 3,000 hits,
Mm-hmm.
300 home runs. I mean, there's some pretty amazing. I mean, Stan the Man's in there.
Yeah.
Who were some of the
Willie
others?
Mays.
Willie Mays.
Willie Mays, Stan Musial, and
Hank.
Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Me.
incredible.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good.
How about
That's
your
really-
final year, your final season playing in the bigs for the Royals? Age 40-ish, right?
Yep.
19 home runs, 70 plus RBI, and you thought
I thought
Now,
I was
you were
the
the
worst
worst
player. I thought
player
I
in
was the worst
baseball.
player in baseball.
What
I
the
did.
like-
That tells you how bad a team we had. I led the team in home runs and RBIs, and I thought I was the worst player.
Wow.
I
Really?
was terrible with runners in scoring position. 1 out, 2 outs, say 1 out, runner on third, second and third, I'll pop up or strike out or hit a ground ball to the pitcher. I did that numerous times. But it was just hard. I mean, I didn't. After playing the game for as long as I did in the major leagues and playing it, all through time I was 8 years old, I was a baseball player. So for 32 years, you're playing baseball, and you really got excited when you did something good, and you get really frustrated when you did something bad. I would do something good and not get excited anymore.
it's the
Oh.
chills are
I
gone.
wouldn't get the chills. I would strike out with runners on second and third in the bottom of the ninth and down 1 run. If I did that for the first 18 years I played, I would have gone in and I would have thrown my helmet. I would have broke something. I would have been so mad. I just go back like players do now and just put the bat in the ring. I mean, I
Right.
didn't have that.
Spark.
That fire.
Yeah, I didn't have
Yeah.
the spark or the fire to be the guy anymore. And I think it happens to everybody.
Sure, you get
You
to
know?
a point.
That it was hard. I remember I used to pride myself on being the first one in the locker room and the last one to leave.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm 40 years old, and I'd just gotten married the year before, and I'd lay down, 1:30 in the afternoon. Normally, I'm going to the ballpark at 1:30. I'm taking a nap for an hour at
A
home.
little bit different.
At
right?
home.
Right.
And I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to lay down. I got to take a nap. I'm tired. And so I'd sleep till 2:30. I'd get there at 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon, instead of getting there at 1:45 or 2.
Yeah.
Everybody's already,
Yeah, they're
already,
dressed.
they're
Yeah,
already
Yeah.
kind of playing the card games or walking around, and I'd walk in, and it didn't help that we had a really young team, and I had nothing in common with anybody. I mean, I'd go out after games. I'd go out with Lee May, Hal McRae, Jamie Quirk was a coach for us. I'd go out with the coaching
Coaches.
staff.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everybody else
Yeah.
would go back to the room, and nobody really liked the guys that I played with that last year. Very few of them would ever go out and have a beer. They all went back to their room, and they would play Nintendo golf. They would bring their sets and hook them up to the TV, and they would go up there and drink Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi and eat pizza and play golf all night.
That ain't Georgia
Wow.
style.
And
No, that's
that
not-
wasn't my
that's not
style.
you,
I'm
no.
going, well, I gotta celebrate something or try to drown my sorrows with a couple beers,
Right.
So
Exactly.
it was like, Hal, what are you doing tonight? I'm just going to the hotel bar. You mind if I join you? No, come on, no big deal. So
That's
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, another manager that, I mean,
Yeah.
was playing. We had a bunch of homegrown.
Oh,
Yeah.
Al.
I like
Oh,
that.
well,
I
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That's why I was so excited when they brought up Jersley
Yep.
to be the
Right.
third base coach. I was so excited for him. 30 years in the minor leagues, coaching and managing in the minor leagues for the organization, and then they brought him up to the big leagues. And sure enough, his first year there, we go to 7th game of the World Series, and the next game win the World Series. And
Right.
here's a guy that minor league managers don't make a lot of money, and he lives up in Wisconsin. And the day the season was over in Omaha, he would drive home, and he worked at a furniture store the next day.
No kidding.
And he'd work there until he left to go to spring training. And he was always in debt. You know, Christmas, he had like 4 kids.
Right.
And you know, he's always paying off credit cards. And we got that first World Series check in 2014 with the loser's share, but it was still a hunky chunk, a big chunk of money. He paid off all his credit card debt, and I was talking to him the first day of spring training, and I go, "How was your winter?" He said, "George, I can actually breathe with a sigh of relief right now." And I go, "Why?" And he said, "I don't have any credit card debt anymore." But he was always trying to catch up, you know?
Right, yeah.
So you're happy for guys like that.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting about that? Every other person that we've had on the show that have been through the ranks, they all talk about what an amazing coach he was.
Yeah, he was good.
Amazing guy
He was
going
good.
through the ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Matheny comes over, and you know, it's like he gets to bring his own people, and you know, his jershly to our organization was John Mabry, so he brought John Mabry in. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, right.
And then Jersh got a job with the Royals, and I don't know what. He's managing and he's bench coaching in Double A, I think, right now.
Is he?
Or A League or Double A?
Nice.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
But you'll never be able to take the game of baseball away from him.
Right.
He'll always
He
be
just loves
involved
it.
somewhere.
Right. So how close were you and your brothers? I think, what was it, 1998? How close were you guys to becoming, you know, part owners or owners of the Royals?
Yeah,
was that?
I don't think we got close. I mean, we thought we had a good chance. They said you had to be local.
Okay.
We're local.
Right.
Is that because the
well, that was
Mr.
Ewing
Kaufman said,
Kaufman.
"I'm not selling to anybody from
out of
outside"?
town. Yeah.
Right.
So then, you know, it was just, we heard all these things, and there were some other guys involved. And my partner was a guy named Ted Waite, who started Gateway Computers, and he and I became friends. And at that time, he was 39 years old, worth $7 billion.
Wow.
And so we did all the paperwork, sent it to Major League Baseball, and on Ted's, I'll never forget, they asked him what his net worth was, and he said, "More than enough." How's that? And Ted was kind of a rebel. He had a ponytail.
He's here in Lee Summit. He had that big house off of
Oh, did he really?
Owens Chapel with the blue roof, I think.
Ted Waite?
No.
Wasn't that-
someone
No,
else.
that
was
wasn't Ted
different.
Waite.
Oh,
He was
okay.
in South Dakota. He lived in Sioux City, South
Okay.
Dakota.
Yeah.
I was up there a few times with him up there. But he, you know, we thought we had a good deal. And the Hunts, Lamar Hunt he had a team. And I remember having dinner with Lamar. And I think it was Clark or maybe one of his other sons. And we had dinner at Plaza 3 down in the plaza. And they said, "Hey, why don't you join our team? I think if you're on our team, we'll get it for sure."
Okay.
And then there was a guy, Kent McCarthy, who's real involved. Kent's part owner of the team now. He had a group together, and he wanted me to join their team. There was a guy out of Topeka, Wittig or something, owned an energy company. He invited me because he figured everybody thought I was the wild card,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
I was the worst thing that whoever I was with wasn't going to get, which I found out. Yeah. And Ted and I had a pretty sweetheart deal. I was going to give him $1 million, and I was going to get 45% ownership.
Holy smokes.
Because I was the guy
'Cause
that
the
was
name.
bringing the deal
Right.
together.
Right.
And
right.
then he was going to say, "George, look, I know nothing about baseballs. I know how to make computers. So you just hire somebody to do all that stuff." I said, "Okay, let's do it."
Right.
And as the process went on, I mean, teams were dropping out, and finally he just said, "I've had enough of this. I don't trust the process. We're out."
Wow.
I said, "Okay."
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
you did not end up teaming up with the Hunts?
No.
That was not.
No.
Got it.
They bailed before we did. They thought the
Wow.
process was a little screwy, so we just bailed too.
Gotcha.
And that left a guy named Miles Prentice,
Yep.
who
Miles,
was
yeah.
going around knocking on everybody's door, and he wasn't from here. And he owns 2 minor league baseball teams, but from what I understand, he owns 20% of each one.
Okay.
And he's got other investors. And to own a major league baseball team, you got to have some pockets, you know.
You do.
And David Glass had the pockets.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
my guy had pockets, but you know, would he have been approved by other major league owners being worth $7 billion at 39 years old with a ponytail?
Yeah. Who knows?
And
Who knows?
a drink, a beer in one hand, and a vodka in the other,
Right.
18 hours a day.
Right.
I don't think he would have been approved, but
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
it was
Maybe not.
a screwy process. But you know, we thought we had a chance at first because
Right.
one, I spent my whole career in the organization, and two, I was local.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Prentice wasn't local. Mar Hunt wasn't local.
Yep.
Kent McCarthy wasn't local, but he was going to move back. This Wittig guy from Topeka, he's Topeka, I guess that's local. I was the only local guy
Is that all it would take? Is just somebody in one of those ownership teams with the proposal needed to be local? Just like you say,
Well,
you were local, but they weren't. But if you had a team of 10,
that's what we have now. I mean,
Right.
John Sherman's put together a great group of investors. And what I think is really good, I mean, obviously the price went skyrocketed,
Right.
$1.1 billion.
Right.
And I don't know how much John put in himself, but he's got so many people with Kansas City ties.
Mm-hmm.
People that might not have grown up here, but live here now and have really good net worth. They've all invested in it. Or you get guys like Eric Stonestreet and
Right.
some of these other guys, Dan Dees, who's with Goldman Sachs, who grew up here, now live someplace else. So we all
they
have
still
something
love
in
the
common.
Royals,
Once a Royal, always a Royal, and I think that's the only way that this thing's going to work.
You've told that to a lot of players, haven't you, that have come onto the organization? Like once you're
Once
a Royal, you
always
die
a
a Royal.
I was telling somebody not too long ago, and they looked at me like, "Are you serious?" And I had to tell them I was kidding. I said, every year I get a list of all the ex-Royals that have died, and I jump on a plane and I fly around, and I go to their gravestones or their tombstones, and I have a hammer and a chisel, and I go, "Always a Royal." And the guy said, "You really do
serious?
that?"
For real?
I'm going, "Are you kidding me?"
That's amazing.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You know,
awesome.
you were saying that shit way before Mr. Duffy. Remember when he said, "Bury me a Royal," right? That was a
Yeah,
big deal
right.
for a long
Yeah,
time.
once a Royal, always
exactly.
you'll
Yeah.
die a Royal. That's what I tell all the minor leaguers. I talk to them every year in spring training. I get them
Yep.
45 minutes all to myself. And Mike Sweeney was there this year, and some of the front office people. But usually it's just me because I didn't want, all the coaches and stuff. Because I'm trying to tell the players, the minor league players, you got to respect your coaches. These guys are doing it for the love of the game. They want to get to the major leagues.
Right.
They're all minor league players, and their careers were cut short. Major league players' careers were cut short. They love the game of baseball. You got to respect them. Some of these guys are making $25,000 a year. And I don't want them to hear that crap.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I want our minor league players to respect everybody that we put in a Royal uniform that's going to help them get to the big leagues. And so that's why I did it by myself. But lately, there's been a lot more front office people coming because I think they've gotten wind of it. And I've been doing this for, I retired. I've been doing it 29 years.
That's
29
amazing.
years I've been doing it because I
That's
retired
amazing.
at 40 and I'm
Yeah.
69. So every year I get them and we just go stand out in center field. They're all sitting around. I'm walking back and forth, just telling stories, how I got to the big leagues, what helped me get to the big leagues, about being a good teammate, about giving 100%, and that's all it is.
Yep.
That's all it is. And I said, hey, we've had 50th round draft picks make the team. Gerard Dyson, 50th round draft pick, and then we got first round picks that don't. Everybody here's got a chance to be a Kansas City Royal. Everybody.
Yeah, everyone.
And once you're a Royal, you'll always be a Royal. I tell them that.
That's
fantastic.
really inspirational.
You actually had mentioned something earlier, so
I do it in fantasy camp. God.
I know. No, you do.
I get in the box and you're on third base. Copeland, smile.
Yeah.
Smile.
God.
For the
Relax.
love of God.
Exactly.
Come
God.
on. But talk about the young guys. You were talking about Vinny, who has a great attitude, and he's coming up. Looks like a really great prospect at first base. But is there one or two guys that you've had some interactions with that you're kind of like, man, watch this kid. He's got a really
Bobby
good
Witt,
chance.
just watching him. I mean,
right.
That handwriting was on the wall. You could see that coming from probably the time he was 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Just an amazing, amazing talent.
Yeah.
And he's going to figure it out, and he's going to be one of the best players in the game. There's
And
no
he's-
doubt in my mind.
that's
And I still
awesome,
say
man.
this, and I've been saying this for years. Adalberto Mondesi could be one of the best players in baseball.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Stay
There's
healthy.
nothing he can't do
Right.
except stay healthy. And he got off to a terrible start this year. Then a freak accident where he blew out his ACL. But I think Mondesi has more talent than anybody I've ever seen, and Bobby Witt. Those are
Wow.
the two most I've ever seen in this organization.
That
Since
well,
I
that says a
retired.
lot
That
of
says
why.
a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of just random Joe Blow who reads the paper, watches the highlights. When you hear about Alberto Mondesi,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, the
to
guy's
hear
got the talent. He's got it.
that
It's
testimonial.
overflowing. I was telling people, he's going to be the best player in baseball. Better than
That's
Trout.
incredible.
Better than
Right.
Trout.
No kidding.
There was no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind.
Because he's got the talent.
Well, there isn't anything he can't do.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's hot, which we saw last year a little bit. Remember 2 years ago when he was just the best player in baseball?
Tearing it up.
I mean, he plays shortstop. He's got a great arm. He can run. He can field. He can steal bases. There's
Hit for
nothing
power,
he
yeah.
can't do. Nothing he can't do.
Well,
Yeah.
that says a lot of why, you know.
Yeah.
But
why
now
he's
we just
around.
got to get him to be healthy, get healthy, and you know, there's a lot of guys with talent, but maybe there are a lot of guys without the pride and the heart and the brains to reach their potential. I don't know what's in his heart, and I don't know what's in his head. But as far as flat out ability, I'm putting him up there with Bobby Witt and I just saw Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was just ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
Yes.
Just phenomenal.
An amazing player.
So
For a guy that never hit extra, never did anything.
Right.
Just go out and play.
Just
He
unbelievable
got better and
natural
better
talent.
and better every year. He got better and better and better. And then you watch him play football and you go, God, he's the best running back in the NFL too. It was crazy.
Would that just blow you guys away after the season stopped? I mean, were you guys have some cocktails, watch on Monday Night
you'd
Football?
go watch him play, wouldn't you? In
I'd go
Oakland?
watch him all the time.
Or in LA?
I was living in Palm Springs in
Right.
the winter.
Okay.
I'd drive in. The Oakland Raiders bought my old junior high school in El Segundo, and that's where then they moved down to L.A. So they bought it, and that's where they had their practice facility. Me and my brothers had a restaurant down there, and the players and the Oakland Raiders or the L.A. Raiders, they would hang out there all the time.
Nice.
And so I would come in every Friday for a Raider game. They played at the L.A. Coliseum. And I'd go to practice on Saturday, the little walkthrough, and then Bo and I'd go out and have lunch. And I took him to a little hamburger place called Erkley's in Manhattan Beach. And oh my God, when he walked in, everybody was kind of, I'd go in there all the time. My brothers knew all the bartenders. We grew up right there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd walk in there, everybody would say, hey, George, how you doing? Hey, good, good. Yeah. And I took Bo in there one time, and everybody's going, there's Bo Jackson. And going, the last time I'm bringing him here. But man, did he love that burger. I was at the game when his hip came out of socket.
No shit.
I was at the game. It was against Cincinnati.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there, and he goes down on the other side of the field. And I knew the trainers pretty well. I'd stand on the sidelines every game with Super Dave Osborne.
I remember Super Dave.
Super Dave?
Yeah.
He would be on the sidelines, and every play he would look at me and go, George, this is the biggest play of the game. You know, and that soft voice that he had. And he played, well, he was on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marty Funkhauser.
Yeah.
And he did all these stunts that would always go wrong, you know. And then James Garner, Maverick.
Oh, my
Rutgers,
gosh.
Rutgers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So those were the three of us that we got sideline passes for all the games.
That's an interesting
So
crew.
yeah, so all of a sudden, Bo, you know, gets up and he kind of hobbling over and holding his hip, and I'm going, oh my God. So I asked the trainer, I forget the trainer's name, and I said, so what happened to Bo? He said, well, he says his hip came out of socket and went back in. He said, that's impossible. Guess what?
That's
exactly what happened.
Oh my gosh.
That's how strong he was. The guy held his leg and he pulled his hip out of his socket, and then it went back in.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable.
Well,
Unbelievable.
being around him at fantasy camp last year, and when he teamed up with you and Jamie and Duke for a couple days,
Yeah.
that was the first time I'd ever met him, and to be around him, like
The
he's
nicest
still
guy in the world.
he's super
Yeah.
sweet,
Yeah.
and he's larger than life
Yes.
still.
Yeah.
He is.
And the
He is.
personality is still he's still Bo.
He's
Yeah.
still, and he's more of an introvert, right? I mean, he's
Yeah,
not
he
the guy.
doesn't. He doesn't go out of his way to
Right.
entertain people.
No.
but super cool. But would you guys, as teammates, were you guys ever like, hey man, this is kind of cool you're doing this, but could you just like focus on just
No.
baseball and
No,
just
I didn't
let
think,
him go?
I didn't think anything would happen to him.
Well, sure.
And I think Nike was paying him so much, and Nike probably said, "Hey, wouldn't it be great? We could really do
The
it.
marketing of it.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
We could really market your ass if you go play football for 6 or 7 games a year."
Yeah.
You know, so
It's pretty
all day long.
special. So I mean, he's a
the
big.
good thing about
entrepreneur.
Bo, he surrounded himself with good people. His wife Linda is a very intelligent person, and he's had people manage him in a perfect manner. You know, you see so many ex-athletes get broke 2 years after, or 5 years afterwards. Bo
Right.
now is doing very, very, very well, and I'm so proud of people that do that.
That's
you know,
awesome. Yeah.
that play any sport and are able to take the resources that they've made and make that grow over time rather than go out and buy unnecessary stuff.
Sure.
Right.
It's like Bo, one day he comes over and he says, hey, I'll pick you up tomorrow. Let's ride to the stadium together. And I said, well, what if I don't come home after the game? He said, well, I'll take you wherever you want to go. And he pulls up in front of my house in a brand new Ferrari, red Ferrari.
Nice.
Red Ferrari. And I go, what are you doing spending your money on this? He said, I didn't do it. Nike gave it to me.
Oh.
So
Right,
he let me
okay.
drive it. He let me
Right.
drive
Wow.
it to the ballpark that
Right.
day.
That's cool.
Oh,
That was
God,
pretty sweet.
I'm hauling ass,
Right.
going down
Right.
435. We were living in Leawood at the time. And, God, it was so much fun. But I'm not the type of guy that go out and spend
flash.
$220,000
No.
on a freaking car.
Smart on him,
Yeah,
though.
but, he wouldn't have done it either.
No.
Well, we had a guy that played with us on that team. Danny Tartable was on the team that year.
Yeah.
A week later, Danny went out and bought one for $220,000.
Right.
See, to keep up with Bo.
There it is.
Yeah,
There it
Just
is.
path to nowhere.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine being a KCMO cop and pulling over George Brett and Bo Jackson in a red Ferrari? I'd be like, what's up, guys?
So you've been involved in a lot of businesses too. You're talking about investing your money wisely. I mean, how many businesses do you think over the course of your adult life that you've been a part of?
We own the baseball teams. We own 3 minor league baseball teams.
Still,
now.
right?
Yeah, Rancho Cucamonga, Tri-Cities, and Spokane. We own a hockey team in Spokane in the Western Hockey League. We had the bad company for a long time. Been in the restaurant business. I'm 0 for 2 in that. It's always good for the first 5 years. After that, it's kind of a tough business.
It's
you
a
got
tough
more
gig.
food going out the back than you do the front.
We always talk about
And then back in the day, we had the restaurant in Manhattan Beach. There was more drugs being sold out of the back than there was food out of the front.
So you're talking about that and the one you had in the plaza?
Well, the one in the plaza just didn't work.
Right.
And then it's been a family business of ours, the real estate, apartment units.
Oh, nice.
Been involved with that for 40 years.
Wow.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
40
Very
years.
cool.
Mostly in Southern California. We don't have anything here, but mostly in Southern California where my brothers all lived, and got some up in the state of Washington, and because that's where one of my brothers he lives there now. And that's the business that he got into. He became a real estate guy, and then they started buying duplexes, and then fourplexes, and then eightplexes, and then 20plexes, and then 60. And so that's what the family has basically done.
That's awesome.
That's
And Leslie's
super.
got
But
the
along
flower
with-
shop.
And my wife has the flower shop, and
Is there any plug that we can give Leslie in the flower
yeah,
shop?
little flower shop, best flowers in town, man. I tell you.
Right. Any guy
Right.
that gets in trouble or needs to do something?
Anybody
Right.
gets in trouble.
Right.
In fact, there's a lot of times I go down there and I see who's gotten in trouble.
Yeah. Taylor's orders some flowers.
Yeah, yeah.
Honey, I'm
exactly.
sorry about last week.
Right.
Oh,
bad.
look what Doug's sending Susie.
That's
I said
fantastic.
some the other day. A good friend of mine's wife or girlfriend had surgery, and she was coming home from the hospital. I was playing golf with him, and I said, "When's Katie coming out of the hospital?" He said today. And so I hung up the phone. I said, "I'll see you at noon." So sure enough, 10 o'clock in the morning, I called up the flower shop, and I said, "Hey, can we send some flowers over to Katie?
Right.
And I'll go down there today and pay for them."
That's cool.
Yeah,
So
that's super cool, man.
tell the audience where the shop
The little
is. and how-
flower shop on State Line, right across the street from Pembroke.
Oh,
Or not?
Perfect.
Pembroke
Yeah,
High School.
yeah, that's
right
right, yeah.
across the
Pembroke.
street, right next to T's Coffee House, and then there's a chocolate shop on the corner that sells great gelato. Great gelato. And then there's a home furnishing office right
Yeah,
there.
it's a great little
Yeah,
spot.
it's a neat little store, block, beautiful area, and yeah, it's been great. My wife really enjoys it, and she did that because my son graduated high school, and my youngest son, and she was always involved somehow, volunteering her time or doing stuff for Shawnee Mission East.
Right.
Always involved at Westwood View when my 3 kids were there at Indian Hills Middle School, and all of a sudden she's going, "Okay, now what am I going to do?"
Yeah.
She doesn't play golf. She doesn't play tennis. And a good friend of hers, Chuck Matney, who had his flower shop for a long time, he went through some issues, got all his issues cleared up, and now he's ready to get back in business. And they came to me one day and said, we want to open a flower shop. I said, go for it.
perfect.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously,
That's fantastic.
we're always big on people starting their own businesses and talking about because obviously we're
Exactly.
very, very passionate about
yeah,
entrepreneurism,
Sure.
and
Right,
spreading that
exactly.
for sure.
And there's probably a pretty good chance we'll need flowers in the near future.
the little flower shop. I wish I knew the phone number. If I want to call there, I just go call the flower
Yeah,
shop.
We'll plug it in later.
Yeah.
For sure.
You got anything
Yeah.
else that you want to plug?
This guy right here.
Okay.
Next
Let's
Gen
talk about
Cattle
it.
Company.
Let's talk about it.
This is a guy I met, and this is the most amazing thing. I've always, when I was younger and playing, you remember the TV show Dallas? You don't
Yeah.
remember.
No,
'cause
I-
you're too young.
No, I remember
Okay,
Dallas.
Dallas. You're too young.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a secretary when I was playing because I was living alone all the time, and she paid all my bills and took care of my daily life, so I could concentrate on playing baseball. And so Joni would tape everything for me. Okay, look, we're gone. I'm gonna miss Dallas Sunday night. Can you tape it for me? Sure. I'd come home and I'd watch it. And Joni worked for me till the day I got married. And it was the day I got married. She brought the checkbook over to my wife, and she says to her, Joni says to Leslie, "Okay, now is your problem." Swear to God.
I believe it. True story.
So, I remember we had a day off in Dallas one time, and the bus driver that took us from the hotel to the ballpark, and he would do tours to South Fork all the time, and I was talking to him, and the guy was really a nice guy, and I said, "Hey, God, I want to go out there." He says, "Well, I'm not working tomorrow. I'll come pick you up. We'll go out there and we'll."
No way.
So we went to South Fork, took the tour and stuff. It was great. We went out and had lunch. And then I went back to the hotel, and who knows what I did. But I've always kind of liked that lifestyle, a rancher.
Mm-hmm.
And I meet this guy. He's right at the start of the Flint Hills when you're going on I-70. And as soon as you see that sign, "Welcome to the Flint Hills," you'll see a billboard there that says Next Gen Beef.
Okay.
Well, this guy, it's hard to explain, but they do bull sales there. They do everything, but they have their own bulls. They do DNA on every cow that's born.
Wow.
DNA. They'll tell you who the mother is and who the father is. They'll know who the bull's father was, who the bull's grandfather was, and it's like next generation beef. And they're gonna I just signed a contract with them 2 days ago after about a week of negotiating and stuff. And I'm gonna do all their ads for them. We got a couple. I think they're gonna put some on their website right now, but they're gonna go direct to consumer. They want to do that, like an Omaha Steak Company.
Yeah.
And it is. I'm not kidding you. It's great
the
beef.
best stuff.
It's great beef because they know that they know what he's eaten, where he's been, and they own their own grain feedlots, and they have their own processing. So they own the cows, they own the feedlots, and they own the processing center.
So it's a continual
So
one-stop
it's
shop.
one thing. This
That's
one
it.
cow is in their possession till that cow dies,
That's
and then he's
amazing.
served on your table, and they know everything about that cow.
And I bet the
everything
beef's
about it.
amazing.
That's
The
different.
beef's
Yeah.
incredible.
Cool.
It's incredible.
How can we get some?
Yeah.
Well, you go to nextgencattlecompany.com.
Okay.
Check that
It's
out.
gonna be so good. I mean, I just signed it the other day. The other day I went there. About 4 days ago, they were moving 220 bulls 5 miles from one pasture to another. And I've driven to Wichita so many times and look out the window when you see the Flint Hills. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Never really been out walking around, and I've been out to the ranch before, and we've been in Polaris's or 4-wheelers
Sure.
and driving them around and looking at it. It's just beautiful. This time I left the house at 4 in the morning. It takes me an hour and 20 minutes to get there. I get there, they have a horse saddled up for me. I'm one of the cowboys.
Yeah.
5
No
miles
kidding.
How'd it go?
moving. It was unbelievable. Obviously, I don't run on a horse.
It's like
I just
city
walk.
slickers.
Yeah, but I'm a walker, and you're just kind of walking on the outside, and every once in a while they'll say, "Hey, George, come on in a little bit, or go that way a little bit. We got to run them through this little path down here, so back off, so they'll feel free."
Sure.
And they had the dogs running behind, nipping them in the in the
Yeah.
feet,
Right,
trying
right.
to get them in. One goes over there. I'm not going to start. Come on, let's go. And these guys are roping. They got their ropes out just in case,
Yeah.
and they're practicing and stuff. They're real cowboys. So we did that, and then we separated them, and into 4 different pens, and then I went home. But I bet once every 2 weeks I'll be out there riding and doing stuff.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
watching them brand new babies and stuff.
You
Just
had a
something
blast.
I
completely-
really want to. And this guy's brilliant. He knows he got in the business. He had a very successful business. I think he sold it, and then he got in the cattle business years ago with his brother and his cousin, and just because he wanted to spend more time with his kids. And before he was traveling a lot, and he does not miss a kid's game. He's real involved with them, and he's just the nicest guy in the world. Next Gen Beef or Next Gen Cattle Company.
Right.
I'm glad
We're checking it out.
Yeah.
Pimp that for you a little bit. That's awesome. Very cool.
Maybe you and I can go out there roping sometime.
Yeah, that would be City Slickers.
That would be fun.
Boy, we were just standing there one time in this field, and all of a sudden, this swarm of bugs were just all around you. You couldn't escape them. And man, I got home, and I'm kind of going like this. And the next day I woke up, I had welts on my neck, on my chest, where they got in, you know.
Yeah.
So next time I do that, I'm going to wear one of those scarves around my neck.
Right.
And I got there. I was wearing a Next Gen baseball cap that he gave me, and he also brought. I wore that driving out there in the morning, thinking that's what I was going to wear. And next thing you know, he brought me a cowboy hat. He says, "No, you got to wear a cowboy hat when you're rounding up cattle."
Right.
For sure.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Great thing is this hat was too small for him, so it fits me perfect. So I got a new hat out of the deal too.
Nice.
No, we'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well,
Man,
before
go
we
ahead.
wrap up, any other story that and we've talked a lot about stuff that you have told probably 1,000 times. Any story that you like to tell that you don't get asked about a lot?
Maybe something under the radar.
That's still that you can share that you're able to share.
Right.
You know, people always ask, "Why didn't you write a book?" I say, because if you write a book, you're going to piss somebody off, and I work too hard at friendships to piss anybody off. And if you write a book, you got to be honest. You know, you got to be honest. One thing that I did recently, which I think is really a neat story, and an ex-teammate of mine, Willie Mays Akins.
Yeah.
There's a movie about his life.
Yeah.
He wrote a book. There's a movie about his life, and they did a premiere of the movie in Washington, D.C., and then the next day they went to Cooperstown. And I was in Arizona at the time, and so I said, Willie wanted me to go with him. Because I'm not a big part of the movie, but there's a guy playing me.
Sure.
Because I was the guy that got Willie the job with the Royals, or introduced him to Dayton and said, I think we should hire this guy. And, you know, Willie and I were always teammates, great teammates, and I loved playing with him. I didn't do anything off the field with him. Because obviously we all know he went his way and I went my way.
Right.
Give me a couple beers, I'm the happiest guy in the world. Give Willie a line of Coke, he's the happiest guy. And I didn't want to hang out with guys like that.
You didn't want to do that. Right.
So, but we were great friends and great teammates. And I went back for this movie premiere. And they had the guy that wrote the book. They had the guy that directed the movie, the producer of the movie. And it was during Hall of Fame weekend out there, which Hall of Fame weekend in Cooperstown is they get an ex-player from every team. And they go there and they play a game. And they get some Hall of Famers to be their coaches, kind of like a fantasy camp.
Sure.
Okay.
But you're playing with, like, Willie represented the Royals.
Okay.
And, God, who else? One guy. There's an ex-guy from each team. So at the premiere of the movie in the Cooperstown Theater, which is inside the Hall of Fame, they had Alan Trammell was one of the coaches, Ozzie Smith one of the coaches, Lee Smith was one of the coaches, Ferguson Jenkins was one of the coaches, and probably a couple more guys were the coaches. And so we're all in the theater and getting ready to watch the movie, and we watch the movie, and I'm sitting next to Willie. And every once in a while, they'll show me in the movie and me and Willie talking, and I go, that's not exactly how it happened. Do you remember how? He said, George, it's a movie. But I'll tell you what, it's a tearjerker.
I bet.
Is
I've
it
watched,
really?
Freaking tearjerker.
watched the
No
trailer.
kidding.
It looks good.
It is, and it's coming to theaters here soon.
Yeah.
They're gonna play it here for like a
It's
week.
a
or
limited
something.
release, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Very
we need to
limited
get all the
release.
fantasy guys together for that.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
and I tell you what, it was a tearjerker. And then afterwards, we had dinner with all the people involved with the movie. The girl that plays Willie's daughter is the most beautiful, the best actress I've ever seen in my life. And she's from L.A. Her and her dad were there. And I was sitting right across from them at the dinner. We had a long table in this big dining room. There's probably 40 people there. And the wine was flowing. The beers were, you know.
You were having a horrible time.
Oh, God, it was
Terrible.
great.
It's
It was
awful.
great. Well, to go to Cooperstown takes you a day to get there and a day to get home. So you might as well enjoy yourself when you're there.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing thing. And I'm talking to Ellen Trammell, and I'm talking to Lee Smith, and I'm talking to Ozzie Smith afterwards when we get back to the hotel. And we're just kind of BS. I said, it's a pretty good movie. And Ellen Trammell says, shit, George, I had tears in my eyes.
Wow.
That's
Ozzie
pretty
Smith,
cool.
I had tears in my eyes. I had tears in my eyes. I was watching it like this.
Yeah.
And you're trying not to wipe your tears. This guy's a friend of mine.
Right.
But what he went through after he got out of prison and the struggles, the time that he walks into a liquor store and he's in downtown Kansas City and he walks in and he's kind of looking at all this stuff and I can't do it. Right. And he walks out. And it's just a really good story, and how his daughter would never call him dad. And then finally at the end she calls him dad.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty cool.
That's
Cool.
pretty cool.
Well,
check that out, man.
That's going to be a special story to be able to share with everybody, and thank you for bringing that to life.
Yeah,
for
you should
the
have Willie on
listeners.
their podcast.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Would you mind connecting us with,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
him to
no
do
problem.
that? That'd be great.
We'll call him when we're done.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We'd love to have him.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much,
Yeah,
George.
George, thank you so much for coming out. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
Wait a second, we're not done yet. Wait a second.
Let's keep
Right.
it going.
What do you got?
I'm going to call Willie right now.
Okay, let's get it.
Love it. Put on speaker.
Hey, Siri, call Willie Akins.
This is awesome.
Right. This is how you do it.
Willie Akins Mobile.
Oh, you got British Siri.
Yeah, no, New Zealand.
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
I was over there. I kind of fell in love with the
You got it on
country.
speaker. And then just
There you
hold
go.
it up.
You got it now.
Hey, Mick, you there?
Yeah.
Hey, I just did a podcast.
Okay.
I did a podcast. They want you to do a podcast.
When?
When you guys want to do
Well,
it?
the next week or two.
Whenever you want.
Do
Willie.
you remember Bon Jovi? Oh, no, were you at Fantasy Camp this year?
No.
No, he
Oh,
wasn't.
you weren't there. These two guys, Copeland and Bon Jovi. John Bon Jovi, is that what it is?
Let's go Bob Jovi.
Bob Jovi. Bob Jovi. They were on my team last year in Fantasy Camp. They have one. We just did it. And they go, oh, anything else you want to talk about? And I said, yeah, I want to talk about going to Cooperstown with Willie Mays Akins. And then I said, you guys should have Willie on the show. And they said, oh, my God, could you put us in touch with him? How about that, Mick?
We want to talk about your movie.
I want to talk about your movie
Your story.
and all your home runs you hit in the 80 World Series.
That sounds great.
How about that, Mick? Would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give them your number. They'll call you. These guys are fantasy camp lifers.
Well, I haven't been to the fantasy camp since 12, I think.
Well, we
That's
got to
okay.
we got to
Change
get you there.
that,
We got to
yeah.
get you there this year.
I know for whatever reason it is, they don't want to invite me anymore.
Well, I'll tell them to invite you. How's that sound?
We'll see.
Huh?
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
What do you say?
So we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, man.
Thanks, Willie. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you, Will.
Willie. I'm going to give them your number.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay. See ya.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
How's that?
Thanks, George.
That's
Vinny
amazing.
Pasquantino scores. Royals extend
That's
their lead
right.
3-1. Look at that.
Go, baby.
They have an afternoon game.
Let's go.
Hey, so George, is there anyone else? Because I probably wouldn't have thought about Willie Akins.
No, it's perfect
That's a
timing with the movie. Yeah.
Is there anyone else that you think that would be?
Is it all
really
baseball
cool?
players
No,
or is it
no,
business
no,
guys?
no business,
Anyone,
anything.
business.
Anything. Well, let me
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you don't have to tell
Yeah,
us.
let me
right
think
now.
about it.
We'll,
I'll think
we'll
of some
come up with
guys.
something
Exactly.
later. Yeah.
That'd be
I
amazing.
gotta
be
go
all
Akins here. Willie Akins.
He's sharing the
That's his
contact.
number. There you go. Write it down.
Well,
We'll get it.
we'll
We'll
wrap up
here.
the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap
Wrap
it
it
up.
up.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the ABC podcast. Always be cool. Always do the right thing. Live by the golden rule. I am Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland, Mr. George
Brett.
Brett.
Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
All right, peace out.
Peace out.